of you have wanted to smash this into 1,000 pieces. Can we really trust our scale? Now, when many of us start a diet, one of the first things we do is take the step on the scale to see how much we weigh. And while this does serve as a good tool for us to gauge progress, so many different variables affect the scale. If we're not aware of them, it can be really demotivating whenever we get on it and we see a number that's higher or the same as the last time we saw it. There are so many different things that affect the number we see on the scale besides the amount of fat on our body. Some of this stuff is how much food we ate the day before, how hydrated we are, if we consumed a bunch of sodium the day before, so now we're holding on to more water, if we drank alcohol, which has a natural diuretic effect, which flushes water out, what season it is of the year. If it's a warmer season and we're sweating more, we're going to weigh less. If it's a colder season and we're sweating less, we're going to weigh more. The total volume of food we ate. So even if we stuck to our calorie limits, if the foods we ate the day before were much heavier and weighed more, we're going to weigh more the next day. What time we weighed ourselves, if we had a meal later in the evening the night before. So let's say we normally eat at 6 p.m. and last night we ate at 9 or 10 p.m. but we still got up and weighed ourselves at the same time. Well, that's going to affect how much we weigh and it's going to cause us to weigh more. Cortisol levels in general for people who are stressed at work or have other life events going on that are stressing them out, maybe they're not sleeping as much, cortisol levels are higher. That can also cause you to hold more water, which is going to cause the scale to weigh more. If we just started a new training program and we hadn't really been following a good structured program for a while, and we're getting kind of a body composition shift, or a recomp going on, so we're losing fat and gaining muscle at the same time, this can cause the weight on the scale to be stagnant or maybe even go up a little, but we're still losing fat. But because we're also building lean muscle, the scale number's not changing like we would expect it would. There are a bunch of different things that affect the scale, and those are just a few of them, but I think they got the major point across is that we can't rely on just the scale as a way to track progress. I do think the scale is a good tool to use whenever we're trying to lose weight. However, I think because all of these different things affect the number we see, that it's probably more ideal if we use it in conjunction with some other methods. It could be anything from progress pictures to body circumference measurements to trying on old clothes, or to getting the feedback from a friend or from someone else that you trust who's going to be honest with you. Doing a combination of both that and using a scale is a good way to keep us on track of our goals and keep us from stepping on the scale and it's not changing. It keeps us from getting discouraged. For those of you who do want to use the scale or body weight tracking as a way to track progress, there is a specific way that I would recommend doing it just to make sure you get the most consistent, accurate readings. So the best way to use a scale as a way to track progress and make it as accurate as possible is to weigh yourself under the same conditions each and every day. What you would do is every morning when you get up, after you've gone to the bathroom, before you've eaten or drank anything nude, you would just weigh yourself first thing in the morning. You would just look at it as data collection. You wouldn't think twice about it, don't worry about it, and just write it down. And you would do that every single morning until the end of the week. And then you would take that week's data, average it out, and then compare it to the next week. And then compare that to the next week. So you're comparing weekly averages versus daily averages. So by doing that, by comparing, let's say 7 days against 7 days compared to 1 day against 1 day, will help eliminate some of those outliers, some of those days where maybe you had a meal that had a bunch of sodium, or maybe you were not very active one day. It kind of helps to eliminate all those different conflicts and gives us a more true, accurate weigh-in. There may be times whenever we even need to stretch this out further. So week-to-week averages are great. However, there may be times that we want to compare even larger averages, such as we start to get leaner and have less fat to lose, it may be best to compare bi-weekly. So compare 2-week averages to 2-week averages. So you're comparing 14 days to 14 days and seeing the rate of loss. Or in some cases, maybe even a month to a month. Doing this and focusing on averages rather than daily weigh-ins is going to be a much more reliable indicator of true progress, plus keep us from getting demotivated and discouraged whenever we get on the scale and it hasn't changed. Whenever you step on the scale, the best way to look at it is this is just data collection. It's just a machine. It's nothing more than that. And all it's doing is providing you data that you can use to make changes when you need to, and not getting too attached to the number we see, because as we've talked about, there's so many things that affect it. And just being consistent with the plan you have in place, looking at the averages, and over time, if the averages are going down, then we know we're heading in the right direction if our goal is weight loss. Now, if the averages, if you're comparing week to week or 2 weeks to 2 weeks or month to month and stuff isn't changing, well then okay, we know, we've taken care of those outliers, we've taken care of stuff that might be conflicting with the scale, and maybe the other methods we're using, maybe the visual progress pictures or maybe the measurements we're taking, those aren't changing either. Well then we might need to step back and say, okay, well it is time to make a change. We do need to lower calories or up cardio or whatever we choose to do. One last point I'd like to make about using the scale for tracking progress is if you can, try to use the same scale every time. Scales, even if they're brand new or by the same company, they can still have slightly different readings. So if you're using different scales, then that could give you different readings and really confuse and conflict with the data you're getting. So just by sticking with the same scale, it really helps to just minimize any potential conflicts that might affect with the most accurate, reliable reading. If you guys enjoyed this video and you found it helpful, you can find me on MySpace. Just kidding. If you enjoyed the video and found it helpful, be sure to hit the like button so I know what style of videos to create in the future. Subscribe so that way you don't miss out on any new information coming out. Share with your friends or on one of your social media platforms so we can help the channel and our community to grow.